Hello guys, welcome back to LR Anime. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is Explanation of Battle Through the Heavens episode number 210 based on novel. So let's start. Withdraw. A grave expression surged onto the faces of Xiao Yang's group as they watched these Do Sheng fire slaves rushing over. A soft cry sounded and he took the lead to pull back. Although there were many Do Shengs on their side, they would not fearlessly charge forward and block these fire slaves, who knew no pain or fatigue. Zun and the rest hurriedly followed after seeing Xiao Yang withdraw. They did not head to those large groups of people. Instead, they found a spacious location of their own. Some mere fire slaves dare to audaciously claim that they can finish off this chief. The deputy hall chief of the Hall of Souls coldly laughed, but he did not appear to panic. Given his advanced 3-star Do Sheng strength, he could look down on the strongest fire slave present. Hence, he was not the least bit worried about the 10 elite Do Sheng. Deputy hall chief, do not take the initiative to attack. We will fight if a fire slave steps forward. Otherwise, let's just watch the show, Han Feng spoke in an indifferent voice. Alright, the deputy chief of the Hall of Souls strangely laughed upon hearing this. His eyes were filled with ill intent as he looked at Xiao Yang. His eyes flickered. No one knew what he was thinking. The other experts hurriedly gathered together as the Do Sheng fire slaves moved. Their eyes revealed some caution as they looked at the 10 fire figures who had appeared a short distance away in the blink of an eye. 10 fire figures appeared in front of everyone. Those hollow eyes slowly scanned the area before they rushed forward. All of them headed in different directions as they flew toward the target they had chosen beforehand. Be careful. Xiao Yang let out a low cry after seeing these fire slaves split up. Perhaps it was due to them having the most people, but 3 Do Sheng fire slaves headed in their direction. The strongest among them was an advanced 2-star Do Sheng. It was not very difficult to deal with them. Leave the advanced 2-star Do Sheng fire slave to me. Xiao Yang gently stretched his fingers as he spoke. Leave that initial 2-star Do Sheng to me. Zun also smiled and spoke. In that case, I will deal with the last one. The first elder of the Pill Tower laughed. The final fire slave was an advanced 1-star Do Sheng. Given his strength, it would not be difficult to obtain victory. Everyone else should be careful. Pay attention to the activity of others, Xiao Yang cried out in a deep voice after the allocation of manpower was completed. His body moved, and he appeared in front of the advanced 2-star Do Sheng fire slave. The vast and powerful Do Qi within his body moved. He clenched his hand and the heavy Shen ruler appeared in his palm. He quickly waved the ruler and ruthlessly hacked at that fire slave's head with a wild attack. Clang! A layer of cream-white fire burned on the body of that fire slave as it faced Xiao Yang's ferocious strike. The fire slave lifted its arm and forcefully blocked Xiao Yang's heavy ruler. Sparks shot out from the point of contact. After forcefully receiving this ruler strike from Xiao Yang, the cream-white flame on the body of the fire slave seemed to possess an intelligence of its own as it suddenly surged and turned into a ferocious huge mouth that bit at Xiao Yang. What a strange purifying demonic lotus flame. Xiao Yang was extremely afraid of the purifying demonic lotus flame. He could not allow these demonic flames to adhere to his body, so he moved and appeared behind the fire slave. Both of his hands were lifted. Dark black light circles spread from his hand with lightning-like speed. Great Heaven Creation Palm. 2 dark black light circles swiftly surfaced on Xiao Yang's palm. With his current strength, it was possible for him to use his other hand to unleash the Great Heaven Creation Palm. After all, his current strength might even be greater than the owner of the Great Heaven Creation Palm. Bang! The light circles surged before ruthlessly smashing into the Do Sheng fire slave. An unusually powerful force struck the cream-white flame on the fire slave's body until it became a little dimmer, but this kind of damage was unable to hinder the attacks of the fire slaves since it didn't possess any senses. The fire slave unleashed a sharp retaliation. This had caused Xiao Yang to momentarily panic, but he quickly focused his mind and gradually obtained the upper hand. He would scatter some of the cream-white flame on the fire slave's body each time a palm wind fell. Once the demonic flame on the fire slave's body completely vanished, its strength would diminish. While Xiao Yang was revealing his great might and pushing this advanced Do Sheng fire slave toward defeat, both Zun and the first elder also obtained quite a great result. The strength of the two of them was stronger than their respective fire slaves. Adding their agility and powerful Do skills, they were able to gain the upper hand despite feeling a little restrained because of their fear of the flames on those fire slaves. The entire sky above the Sea of Magma was enveloped in an array of extremely intense battles. Of course, the most fiery hot and terrifying aspect was naturally the 100,000-foot-wide battleground at the middle. It was the battleground of the 7 4-star Do Sheng and the purifying demonic lotus flame. After the 7 cooperating 4-star Do Shengs unleashed their full strength, the purifying demonic lotus flame began to get entangled with them. Regardless of how strong it was, the heavenly flame's opponents still had a far greater number of people. Moreover, all of them possessed a lot of battle experience. Although it was their first time working together, their cooperation was operational. Even the purifying demonic lotus flame had to brace its attention when their combined attacks came and treat them seriously. No one dared step into this 100,000-foot-large battleground in the sky. Frightening storms whistled within it. Waves of entwining energy storms spread in an extremely chaotic manner that did not differentiate between friend or foe. Anyone swept into it would suffer a fatal blow. There were many relatively smaller battles taking place outside of the big battleground. This was where Xiao Yang's group was battling the fire slaves. Xiao Yang's group had been allocated 3 of the 10 Dosheng fire slaves. The remaining 7 had also sank into an intense battle with the other experts. There were quite a number of experts who had stepped into the demonic flame realm this time around. If one were to count their numbers, they would far surpass these 10 Dosheng fire slaves. However, in terms of quality, they were somewhat inferior to these fire slaves. Among the 10 fire slaves, everyone had discovered that there were 2 who had reached the 3rd star of the Dosheng class after a battle. One of the 2 3-star Dosheng was being held back by the deputy chief of the Hall of Souls while no one else could block the other. After all, those 4-star Doshengs were already fighting the purifying demonic lotus flame. The strongest person present was the deputy chief of the Hall of Souls, but even he had been caught up in the big battle. This final 3-star Dosheng seemed to have become a fierce wolf as it charged into a herd of goat and went on a rampage. Any expert it met was frightened to the point of retreating. In the end, 3 experts, whose strength had barely reached the 2nd star of the Dosheng class, ended up holding it back. Of course, there were still some elite Dozuns, who had luckily survived remaining in the sky. Most of these people might be at the peak of the Dozun class, but they did not dare to get involved in a battle between Doshengs. Each and every one of them could only flee and get as far away as possible. Only at this moment did they discover just how foolish it was to enter this demonic flame realm. Yellow spring palm. An enormous energy palm suddenly formed in the sky. It was accompanied by a vast and mighty strength as it ruthlessly smashed into the body of the fire slave. A frightening force scattered the final demonic flame on the fire slave's body. After this final flame was scattered, that fire slave, which had been going all out to attack, suddenly became much slower. Its might was greatly diminished as it attacked. Looks like these flames are their source of energy. Xiao Yang mused within his heart upon noticing this change. It seemed that this fire slave was not as perfect as he had imagined. I wonder if I can use the earlier spiritual symbol from that light cluster to temporarily obtain control of this fire slave. Xiao Yang's eyes flickered. His eyes swiftly swept around him as his heart pounded. If he could control these fire slaves, his strength would undoubtedly soar. Xiao Yang acted the moment after he thought about using the symbol since he understood the current situation. His body moved and he appeared in front of that fire slave. The space became still with a wave of his hand. That weakened fire slave froze. At the same time, Xiao Yang's finger swiftly formed a mysterious fluctuation. He drew a mysterious symbol on the forehead of that fire slave by using his spiritual strength. Go. The symbol was imprinted onto the forehead of the fire slave as Xiao Yang cried out the moment it was formed. This symbol merged with the fire slave's skin before it entered its mind. Bang! After this spiritual symbol entered the mind of the fire slave, Xiao Yang quickly sensed an extreme heat being emitted from the other party's mind. He was able to use a feeling to see the deepest part of the fire slave's mind. There was a cream-white fire bead lingering in that spot, and inside the fire bead was an extremely terrifying energy. The spiritual symbol invaded the fire slave's mind. It lingered around the cream-white fire bead before it emitted wave after wave of mysterious barriers. It slowly began to isolate the fire bead. An additional feeling appeared in Xiao Yang's heart the moment the fire bead was isolated. His heart moved and the fire slave in front of him quietly lowered its arm. It quietly stood beside him like a servant. I am able to control it. A wild joy that could not be hidden immediately appeared on Xiao Yang's face after he realized he could control it. If he were able to control these 10 fire slaves, the lineup beneath him would erupt like a rocket. At that time, it would be possible for him to destroy the Hall of Souls. The Dosheng fire slave quietly stood beside Xiao Yang with a numb and hollow face. Only that terrifying energy fluctuation that was vaguely being emitted from its body allowed one to feel just how powerful it was. However, this symbol can only temporarily control the fire slave. Once the purifying demonic lotus flame splits its attention, the heavenly flame will definitely use the fire bead to break the symbol seal and once again obtain control of the fire slave. Xiao Yang's eyes scanned the fire slave beside him. A slight flicker flashed within them. In order to completely control the fire slave, he needed to finish off that fire bead within its mind because that fire bead was the only way the purifying demonic lotus flame could control them. However, the purifying demonic lotus flame probably can't split its attention. Finishing off that fire bead was not something Xiao Yang would be able to do within a short period of time. Hence, he did not entertain this thought for long. He swept his eyes across the other battles. The fire slaves battling Zun and the First Elder had been suppressed to the point that they were forced to retreat. The dense white flame on their bodies had become dimmer. From the looks of it, it was only a matter of time before they obtained victory. Xiao Yang sighed in relief after verifying that Zun and the First Elder weren't experiencing any problems. He was just about to turn away when an extremely overbearing energy fluctuation was suddenly emitted from a short distance away. The heavenly flame within Xiao Yang's body trembled slightly because of this fluctuation. The movement of the heavenly flame within his body caused Xiao Yang to lift his eyebrows. His eyes followed the direction the fluctuation had originated from. In that direction, one could see a fire floating in the sky. A pair of 1,000-foot-large flame wings extended from the backside of the fire. Those flame wings were flapped and flames spread in all directions like a storm. These flames filled with an overbearing feeling. Is this the 8 Wasteland Destruction Flame? Envy involuntarily flashed across Xiao Yang's eyes as he looked at the pale black flame behind Huxian. The 8 Wasteland Destruction Flame was an overbearing flame. It was ranked 6th on the Heavenly Flame ranking. There was no need to detail its great strength since just this ranking alone explained everything. Huxian's strength might be inferior to his opponent's might, but with the help of the 8 Wasteland Destruction Flame, the Fire Slave, which had reached the advanced first star of the Do Sheng class, was being beaten until it was unable to retaliate. If the demonic flame wasn't blocking most of the invasion of the Wasteland Destruction Flame, it would have been quickly defeated. Being born in such a big clan is indeed a blessing. At the very least their resources are not something that an ordinary person can compare with, Xiao Yang softly sighed. Honestly speaking, even he desired a heavenly flame like the 8 Wasteland Destruction Flame. He had roamed the continent in order to find heavenly flames, but the highest-ranked heavenly flame he found was the 9th-ranked, the 3,000 Burning Flames. This was lacking compared to the 8 Wasteland Destruction Flame. A low and deep mutter was emitted from another direction while Xiao Yang was quietly sighing within his heart. His eyes followed the sound before slightly narrowing. Hun Feng and an advanced 2-star Do Sheng were fighting there. Both parties boasted similar strength, but that fight was not a stalemate. Instead, it was unusually swift and furious. Xiao Yang merely saw Hun Feng gently land a palm on the Fire Slave's body. After which, the demonic flame on the surface of Fire Slave's body turned into a line of fire that swiftly rushed into Hun Feng's palm. It looked as though the demonic flame was being devoured. He actually dares to swallow the demonic flame. Even Xiao Yang's expression involuntarily changed after seeing this scene. Although these demonic flames did not possess the will of the actual purifying demonic lotus flame, they still possessed an exterminating force. Even he did not dare to simply swallow these flames, but this Hun Feng actually dared to devour them. Given Hun Feng's character, this was definitely not a reckless act. By putting it this way, Hun Feng was confident he could swallow these demonic flames. Even Xiao Yang, who had practiced the flame mantra, did not possess such an ability. Hun Feng's scarlet tongue licked his lips after devouring the Fire Slave's demonic flame. He appeared as though he had not enjoyed it enough, but he seemed to have sensed Xiao Yang's eyes. He turned his head and stared at Xiao Yang. After seeing Xiao Yang's expression, his lips was involuntarily lifted into a dense smile. This fellow is indeed a little mysterious. Xiao Yang's expression gradually returned to its usual calm. His heart reinforced the caution he felt for Hun Feng. The feeling that Hun Feng gave him was the most dangerous among all the members of the younger generation. Hiss. A sudden and extremely frightening energy fluctuation exploded from that huge battle some distance away while a caution soared within Xiao Yang's heart. A sharp howl was suddenly emitted from the mouth of someone. This howl clearly originated from the purifying demonic lotus flame, but there seemed to be an additional fury and wounded feeling in his current voice. It seemed that the combined attack from 7 4-star Do Shengs caused someone as powerful as him to feel quite terrible. Fighting with large numbers ultimately possessed its strength, especially when this sea of people was made up of elite duo Shengs. Bang! Xiao Yang's eyes landed on the enormous battleground. He was just about to speak when his expression suddenly changed. His head suddenly swung to a fire slave a short distance away. He saw a shocking light suddenly shoot out of the eyes of the fire slaves. An unusually wild and violent energy rippled with lightning-like speed. Quick, withdraw. It is about to self-destruct. Xiao Yang was quiet for an instant after seeing this light. He hurriedly cried out to Zun. Yarrow Laro's group revealed shocked faces upon hearing Xiao Yang's cry. A self-destructing elite Do Sheng was not a simple matter. Such a strength possessed the ability to destroy the world. Bang! The fire slave's body swelled at a speed visible to the naked eye while Yarrow Laro's group hurriedly pulled back. After which, the body exploded apart in front of many shocked pairs of eyes. An indescribably frightening energy storm swept across the sky with a shocking speed. 100,000-foot-large crack forcefully tore through the air down to the magma sea region tens of thousands of feet below. It reached the deepest region of the magma. Some of the unlucky individuals, who were slow to run, ended up spitting out fresh blood after the violent energy gently swept through their bodies. A mouthful of fresh blood was spat out. Every inch of the meridians in their bodies was shattered as their flesh broke apart. The fire slave had self-destructed and nearly caused everyone, other than those from the big battleground, to explosively pull back. After the first fire slave self-destructed, the remaining individual's eyes, other than the fire slave being controlled by Xiao Yang, emitted an intense light pillar at this moment. After which, their faces were completely dull as they chased Xiao Yang and the rest who had begun to flee. Even experts like the deputy hall chief began to swiftly withdraw when they saw these fire slaves fearlessly charge over. Even someone as powerful as them could only temporarily hide when an elite Do Sheng self-destructed. Bang! Although Xiao Yang's group's reactions were quick and were able to escape a calamity, not everyone was this lucky. A couple of fire slaves had charged in front of some experts just prior to exploding. After which, they exploded in front of these experts' stunned eyes. A destructive energy shattered those unlucky people into nothing. After a couple of earth-shaking explosions echoed across this realm, over half of the number of experts who had entered the demonic flame realm were lost. Some of those who had luckily survived revealed stunned eyes as they looked at the 100,000-foot-large magma hole. They did not expect these fire slaves to actually self-destruct. 6 out of 9 fire slaves had successfully self-destructed. The remaining 3 were unlucky enough to be caught within the terrifying explosions from the other self-destructing fire slaves. Hence, before they could self-destruct, they were shattered into nothing by wild and violent energy. The eyes of Xiao Yang's group were dull as they stared at the completely empty and cloudless sky. They immediately became quiet. These self-destructing fire slaves had nearly caused them to die. This purifying demonic lotus flame is really ruthless. It has simply allowed its Do Sheng fire slaves to self-destruct. This grand manner is something that even the Hun clan and the Jiyu clan cannot do. Xiao Yang inhaled a deep breath of air and spoke with some lingering fear in his heart. Zun and the others nodded in agreement by the side. All elite Do Shengs were precious. Who would allow them to self-destruct? Everyone, lend me your strength. Now is the best moment to seal the demonic flame. A loud cry suddenly reverberated from the enormous battle in the distance while Xiao Yang's group was sighing in relief from having escaped a calamity. The chief of the Hall of Souls charged toward the sky with a miserable appearance before he slammed against empty air. 100,000-foot large black formation appeared in the sky. The middle of the large formation locked onto the purifying demonic lotus flame below. It is actually the Tianlu ceiling demon formation. Zun immediately let out an exclamation upon seeing the enormous black formation in the sky. From her expression, it was obvious that this formation was quite famous. All right. It was clear that even Jiyu Nanhai and the rest recognized this large formation, but they could not worry much at this critical moment. They rapidly considered the situation before furiously crying out. 6 vast and mighty energy pillars that caused one to tremble surged out from all directions. They charged into the large formation in the sky. The somewhat pale-looking chief of the Hall of Souls hurriedly changed his hand seal after being supported by such a vast and mighty energy. The large formation shook. A completely black pillar that was covered in mysterious symbols suddenly erupted from the middle of the formation. It smashed into the purifying demonic lotus flame below with lightning-like speed. Tianlu refining flame. Essence transformation. A heated expression surfaced on the face of the chief of the Hall of Souls in the sky. His eyes greedily looked at the purifying demonic lotus flame below, which had been struck. The purifying demonic lotus flame would have difficulty escaping. An enormous black light pillar shot down from the middle of the large formation. Its speed was frightening, and with a flash, it traveled across space itself. Even the magma sea region below had been forcefully split, creating a couple 1,000-foot large magma pit. The body of the purifying demonic lotus flame and the black light pillar were caught in a stalemate. The heavenly flame sensed an extremely mysterious decomposition force erupting from the light pillar. The flame on the surface of his body became a little dimmer while facing this strength. A miserable cry that contained a great fury echoed across the sky. Bang! Faced with the strange energy within the black light pillar, even the heart of the purifying demonic lotus flame sensed a hint of danger. Its body abruptly swelled and transformed into a fire body that was 10,000 feet in size. The temperature of the surroundings rose. The magma below bubbled as numerous magma pillars continued to erupt. The rumbling sounds that were emitted seemed to herald the end of the world. The black light pillar formed circular ripples as this purifying demonic lotus flame put up a resistance. It even became slightly distorted. Everyone, pour your strength into the formation. Otherwise, all of us will die if it manages to break the seal, the Hall Chief roared out loud. His expression changed upon seeing this distortion. The hand seal of the Chief of the Hall of Souls changed after this roar sounded. He maneuvered the vast and mighty Do Chi within his body to pour into the formation. The remaining individuals hesitated upon feeling his Do Chi. They clenched their teeth and quickly poured all the dou qi within their bodies into the large formation. The formation quickly widened upon receiving the aid of so much dou qi. The dark black light pillar became purer. The strange energy within it also became more terrifying. Trying to seal me? Who do you think you are? A furious roar reverberated from that enormous flame as it sensed the growing strength around it. The flame within the light pillar suddenly exploded without any warning. Wave after wave of annihilation forces ruthlessly smashed into the dark black light pillar. The crazy retaliation of the purifying demonic lotus flame caused the chief of the Hall of Souls group to turn pale. A mouthful of fresh blood shot out of their bodies. Their expressions became slightly weary at this moment. This battle with the purifying demonic lotus flame had been overly hot and intense. Even they were unable to continue on. Everyone, fight it out with it. The chief of the Hall of Souls wiped the trace of blood off the corner of his mouth. A ferocious expression surged onto his originally ordinary face. He bit the tip of his tongue. A mouthful of essence blood shot out and entered the light pillar. The expressions of the others changed upon seeing that the chief of the Hall of Souls was willing to lose his essence blood. Finally, they violently clenched their teeth and also spat out a mouthful of essence blood into the light pillar. Light suddenly surged from the light pillar after the 7 individuals began an all-out attack. Everyone watched as the enormous body of the purifying demonic lotus flame began to rapidly shrink. Although the heavenly flame continued to emit waves of furious roars, it was unable to stop its shrinking body. Tianluo sealing demon formation, seal. The chief of the Hall of Souls rejoiced upon seeing the flame's shrinking body. His hand seal hurriedly changed before he finally let out a stern cry. The black light pillar that spanned between the sky and the earth began to shrink after the cry sounded. Within a short instant, it turned into a 10-foot large circular pillar. A cream-white flame slowly rose within the circular pillar as a frightening temperature quietly spread. Success! Everyone's hearts felt some joy upon seeing this cream-white flame. After having experienced an intense battle between 7 4-star dou shungs, they had finally sealed the purifying demonic lotus flame. Xiao Yang's eyes focused on the black light pillar. He swiftly refocused them a moment later and his eyes swept over the chief of the Hall of Souls. At this moment, everyone in his group was covered in injuries. Their auras were sluggish. The big battle with the purifying demonic lotus flame earlier had exhausted them. A temporarily silence appeared in the sky after the purifying demonic lotus flame was sealed. Haha, this cooperation is really a delightful one. The purifying demonic lotus flame has finally been sealed and a disaster that could have befallen the Central Plains has been averted. Thank you very much. The chief of the Hall of Souls recuperated slightly before taking the lead to laugh out loud. He cupped his hands to Zi Yang's group. The other people's tight hearts relaxed after seeing him thank everyone. However, everyone had just relaxed when a strange smile flashed across the face of the chief of the Hall of Souls. His hand suddenly grabbed at the black light pillar and the pillar flew toward him with lightning-like speed. Haha, thank you everyone for today. My Hun clan will remember everyone's favor. Bastard. He is indeed not a good person. His actions caused everyone to feel startled, but they quickly recovered before furious curses echoed through the air. How can it be this easy to snatch the demonic flame? An icy-cold cry suddenly rang out when the black light pillar was dozens of feet from the chief of the Hall of Souls. The space around the light pillar became distorted as the direction it was headed changed. After which, it flew to the left of the chief of the Hall of Soul. The chief of the Hall of Souls became furious after seeing the demonic flame, which had almost reached his hand, fly away. His eyes were dark and cold as he glared at Zi Yang, who had intervened. Zi Yang was well versed in spatial strength. Even though she was not in her best condition, she could still distort space and change the direction of the light pillar. The chief of the Hall of Souls might have been furious in his heart, but he did not attack Zi Yang at this moment. Instead, he hurriedly turned his head and cried out to Hun Feng and the deputy hall chief, "Why aren't the both of you snatching the demonic flame? Attack!" The change had occurred suddenly, but it had not exceeded Xiao Yang's expectations. He had been aware that a conflict would immediately erupt after the temporary alliance. This rushed unification was the weakest collaboration possible. The hands of friendship from cooperating earlier did not pose even the slightest hindrance in the face of the temptation of the purifying demonic lotus flame. Hence, deep shouts were made the moment the chief of the Hall of Souls yelled out. Xiao Yang's green and red bone wings swiftly appeared. These wings were flapped and Xiao Yang appeared in front of the black light pillar. He extended his hand and grabbed it. "You are seeking death." Xiao Yang's hand had just been extended when a dark and cold voice sounded above his head. This voice belonged to the deputy hall chief, who had been observing the situation. Xiao Yang's heart trembled upon sensing the wind flowing above his head. His hand turned from a claw to a palm as he slammed it into the light pillar, sending it in the direction of Zun'er's group. At the same time, he suddenly pointed a finger toward the sky. Yellow spring finger. An enormous energy finger swiftly formed before it collided head-on with the deputy hall chief. An energy storm spread as the two staggered back. That is the demonic flame essence. Quickly snatch it. Almost everyone reacted to the situation at this moment. Many fiery hot eyes landed on the dancing black light pillar in the sky. The demonic flame essence had been sealed within it. The strength of whoever managed to obtain it would undoubtedly soar. Numerous pairs of eyes stared at the black light pillar with a fiery heat. Within a short instant, the rushing sound of wind appeared throughout the sky. Almost all the experts who were still alive unleashed their agility skills as they grabbed at the black light pillar. Ha ha, I have obtained the demonic flame essence. An old high-level Ban Sheng in yellow robes managed to grab the black light pillar with his hands amid this free-for-all, but his loud laugh had barely sounded before 10 sharp palm winds ruthlessly smashed into his body. Half of his body blasted into a bloody fog as a sharp miserable screech replaced the laughter in the sky. Xiao Yang knit his brows upon seeing this chaotic scene. He waved his hand and 2 jade bottles swiftly flew out. They landed in Zi Yang's and Jiyu Nanhai's hands. Quick, recover your internal injuries, Xiao Yang cried out to the two of them. Currently, the experts whose strength had crossed the 4th star of the Doshan class were a little weak. Hence, they had not intervened even until now. Whoever was the first to act would undoubtedly be more likely to snatch the demonic flame essence. Zi Yang and Jiyu Nanhai did not utter any unnecessary words after receiving the medicinal pills. They immediately consumed them and recovered their do qi. Of course, they still needed to be wary of their surroundings to avoid a preemptive strike by others. Xiao Yang turned his head to look at the chaotic region. A glow flashed within his eyes as the green-red bone wings on his back were flapped. His speed became many times faster than these ordinary doshungs. Within a couple of flashes, he had charged into the crowd, but the deputy chief of the Hall of Souls swiftly rushed over like a ghost before Xiao Yang could act again. Clearly, the deputy chief was targeting him. Stop him. Xiao Yang let out a cold cry after sensing the deputy chief intervene once again. A thought passed through his heart and the fire slave, which he had been subdued temporarily, charged forward without due care for its life. Zun Jiyu Qingyang, Yarrow Laro, and the others also attacked together from around the fire slave. In an instant, they got entangled with the advanced 3-star Do Sheng deputy hall chief. Xiao Yang flapped both of his wings while the deputy hall chief was stopped. He appeared beside the light pillar and grabbed it, but he discovered that the light pillar did not move when he tried to pull on it. His eyes turned cold as he leaned his head to the side. There was a black-robed young man staring at him with indifferent dark eyes from the other side of the light pillar. Hun Feng. Xiao Yang's face slowly became icy upon seeing this person. There has never been someone who has been able to snatch something from my hands. Hun Feng stared at Xiao Yang and spoke with a dense smile. Xiao Yang curled his mouth upon hearing this. He threw his palm over in the process. There will be someone from now on. A powerful flame spread over Xiao Yang's palm as it was thrown forward. It unceremoniously slammed toward Hun Feng's face. With just you. An ice-cold smile rose on Hun Feng's face. He looked at the powerful heavenly flame on Xiao Yang's palm and the corner of his mouth widened. I have heard that you have merged a couple of heavenly flames. Although this might be powerful in the eyes of others, it is not worth mentioning in front of me. Hun Feng placed his palms together as he coldly laughed. His right palm was suddenly swung forward. He did not dodge. Instead, his right palm made firm contact with Xiao Yang's palm. Bang! A powerful energy ripple swept apart as both palms made contact. It forcefully pushed back the neighboring 2 Ban Shungs as space itself became a lot more distorted. This merged heavenly flames is the what you are so proud of. Today, I will show you how feeble it actually is. Hun Feng laughed a sinister and cold laugh. An extremely mysterious purple-black light suddenly flashed across those pure black eyes. An unusual devouring strength erupted from his palm, and Xiao Yang suddenly discovered that the heavenly flame on his palm was being absorbed into Hun Feng's body a little at a time. Moreover, these heavenly flames had lost contact with his senses after entering Hun Feng's body. This fellow is indeed a little strange. This devouring caused Xiao Yang's heart to feel slightly startled. His hand immediately shook as he resolutely withdrew his palm. His right foot kicked the black light pillar with lightning-like speed and sent it flying into the sky. At the same time, his expression had become stern. The Do Qi in his body crazily surged like an ocean wave. Many extremely powerful Do skills were unceremoniously sent flying toward Hun Feng. Although Hun Feng was only an advanced 2-star Do Sheng, this fellow was even more dangerous than the deputy chief of the Hall of Souls in Xiao Yang's eyes. Flame-splitting tsunami. God Seal skill. 4-seal merger. Bang. Splitting wind tiger raw palm. Black collapsing force. Hun Feng did not feel the slightest fear when these sharp attacks erupted from Xiao Yang at this moment. Not only did he not withdraw, he instead unleashed the Do Qi within his body to its limits. Many extremely powerful high-class Do skills were unleashed. They spread with shocking speed. In an instant, energy erupted in the sky, and the earth-shaking Do skills caused many to be quietly shocked. A purple-brown sea of flames appeared in the sky. All the remaining experts began to flee as this sea of fire spread. Only Xiao Yang and Han Feng continued to remain entangled within this sea of flames. Xiao Yang was becoming more fierce through fighting with the help of the fire's might, but Han Feng did not fall to a disadvantage. That terrifying sea of flames did not pose an obstruction to him. That Xiao Yang does indeed have some ability. He is able to battle Han Feng equally. The chief of the Hall of Souls looked at the two, who had engaged in an extremely intense battle. He slightly frowned. Although Han Feng was merely an advanced 2-star Dosheng, his fighting strength was similar to a 3-star Dosheng. Additionally, the Do skills he practiced were all the top Do skills of the Han clan, significantly raising his fighting strength. He had not expected Xiao Yang to be able to fight Han Feng by relying on his initial 2-star Dosheng strength. Give me a little more time and I will be able to fight again. At that time, there is no need to. The eyes of the chief of the Hall of Souls rapidly flashed. Finally, he looked at the sky above the sea of fire. A black light pillar was floating at that spot, emitting a faint luster. It seemed to possess a demonic force that caused one to feel a crazy impulse. This time around, my Han clan will definitely obtain the purifying demonic lotus flame. The chief of the Hall of Souls clenched his fist and let out a low roar within his heart. Yellow spring finger, yellow spring palm. The grave-looking Xiao Yang flashed in the sky and appeared above Han Feng. The finger and palm were unleashed simultaneously as a huge energy finger and palm broke through the air. They ruthlessly rushed toward Han Feng below. Futile actions. However, Han Feng coldly smiled and shook his head when he saw Xiao Yang's ferocious attack. He pressed his finger against the empty space as 2 thumb-sized purple-black light rays suddenly erupted from his finger. These rays of light collided with the yellow spring finger and yellow spring palm. No energy explosion sounded upon contact. The 2 weak light rays simply eroded the yellow spring finger and yellow spring palm in an instant. Have it been devoured? Xiao Yang's eyes became cold after sensing this devouring strength. After this exchange of blows, he began to gain an understanding of Han Feng. There seemed to be something within this person's body that possessed the mysterious effect of devouring many things. Even some of the heavenly flame within his body would be swallowed if he was not careful. If you only possess these techniques, this battle can end now. Han Feng slowly lifted his head. Those pure black eyes had gained a purple-black light in them. A symbol slowly appeared on his brow. Han Feng's aura soared the moment the clan tattoo appeared. In the blink of an eye, his aura had suddenly broken through to the 3rd star of the Dosheng class. A thought passed through Xiao Yang's heart after seeing Han Feng summon his clan tattoo. Xiao Yang's vast and mighty spiritual strength lingering on his brow quietly surged. A lifelike body slowly appeared beside him. Spiritual avatar. Han Feng's eyes hardened after seeing this spiritual avatar form beside Xiao Yang. The strength of this spiritual avatar was not weaker than Xiao Yang himself. Moreover, the spiritual strength that Xiao Yang possessed was the only aspect in which he felt inferior. It was likely that no one other than the chief of the Hall of Souls at his peak could compare with Xiao Yang's perfect heavenly state spiritual strength. Even the core genius of the Han clan was no exception. 5-ring flame expelling technique. Xiao Yang rushed high into the air after the spiritual avatar appeared. Clusters of heavenly flames surged out of his body. After which, they transformed into enormous fire spirits and swiftly formed the 5-ring flame expelling formation. Xiao Yang's spiritual avatar formed numerous hand seals with lightning-like speed with a grave expression while Xiao Yang's actual body unleashed a powerful strike. Xiao Yang's spiritual body suddenly swelled a couple thousand feet in size as a 10,000-foot large spiritual illusion surfaced on his body. Yellow Spring Divine Anger. Moreover, this was the Yellow Spring Divine Anger unleashed by Xiao Yang's spiritual avatar. Its might was even more powerful than when it was unleashed by Xiao Yang's body. The sea of flames spread across the entire sky. An enormous 5-colored fire plate slowly rotated as a wild and violent energy gathered within it. A solemnness surged onto Han Feng's face when faced with Xiao Yang's attack. A purple-black Do Qi began to surge onto the surface of his body. Do Qi rose and a fire seedling seemed to have suddenly flashed by. The surrounding experts hurriedly pulled back after having sensed the battle atmosphere of this world. They were afraid of getting implicated by the assault. 5-ring flame expelling plate. Xiao Yang's expression was ice-cold as he stood in the sky. His finger suddenly pointed at Han Feng below. A couple thousand-foot large fire plate that was above his head suddenly whistled down. Space itself cracked an inch at a time as it traveled. Even the magma sea region tens of thousands of feet below forcefully split apart until a 10,000-foot wide gully was formed. Yellow Spring Divine Anger. The illusory figure beside the spiritual avatar suddenly opened its mouth the moment the fire plate whistled down. An earth-shaking spiritual attack suddenly rushed forward, heaven-swallowing mirror. The grave expression on Han Feng's face became more dense when he sensed this terrifying attack. A mouthful of purple-black light was spat out of his mouth. It immediately transformed into a purple-black mirror-like light curtain, which spread in front of him with lightning-like speed. Everything that touched this purple-black light curtain, regardless of whether it was a heavenly flame or energy, was completely devoured in an instant. The earth-shaking attacks from both parties suddenly collided in front of many stunned eyes. No brilliant energy sparks or earth-shaking explosions appeared. Only a cruel momentary erosion existed. The flame on the five-colored fire plate became dim at a speed visible to the naked eye upon contact with the purple-black light curtain, but an extremely intense energy fluctuation formed on the purple-black light curtain. The fluctuations rapidly spread and finally covered the entire light curtain. That sonic spiritual attack quickly arrived behind the fire plate. It ruthlessly crashed into the light curtain in waves. Han Feng's body shook after facing such a terrifying attack. A muffled groan was emitted from his throat. He had not expected Xiao Yang's attack to be this unexpectedly powerful. As this wild and violent energy strike came down, the devouring strength of the sky-devouring mirror could not be fully unleashed. Break eye. Xiao Yang glanced at the continuous ripples forming on the sky-devouring mirror from the sky. His body moved, and he merged with his spiritual avatar. The huge illusory figure, which was about to vanish, once again widened its mouth and emitted a soul-stirring spiritual sonic wave. The spiritual assault arrived in the blink of an eye. Han Feng's expression became a lot uglier at this moment. His toes pressed against empty space while his body hurried back. At the same time, the sky-devouring mirror shattered. Haha, thank you for allowing me to win. Xiao Yang faced the sky and laughed out loud after forcing Han Feng back. His body moved, and he once again appeared in front of the black light pillar. He reached out with his large hand and grabbed the light pillar in it. Purifying demonic lotus flame, you are mine. This video will end here.